You're listening to The Freeze by NYY Recaps. I'm your host, Derek Lewandowski. Let's get started. On a night where the Yankees welcomed back the Major League Baseball home run champion Luke Voit, it seemed as if we finally might get that fully armed Death Star lineup that Brian Cashman spoke about a few years ago. Over the past few seasons, the Yankees have been hammered with injury after injury after injury, and we usually don't get a healthy Judge and Stanton in the same lineup, let alone Voit and Torres and LeMahieu, etc. But last night it seemed like we were headed in that direction. But at the last minute, Aaron Hicks, who by the way is hitting close to 400 over his previous 10 games, checked out with a bruised shin, suffered on a foul ball on Sunday afternoon late in the game. Wanting to take an abundance of caution on the ridiculous playing surface that the Rays call a baseball field, the Yankees opted to set him down and play Brett Gardner in center field. Gardner took the collar once again and continues to look like a shadow of his former self. More on him later. They say in baseball that Memorial Day is a good time to evaluate your team and kind of figure out what's working, what's not, where you can improve. And typically no major moves are made before the June amateur draft. But this year, the Yankees have already made 2 trades, picking up Wandy Peralta and Rougned Odor. So Brian Cashman has been active in trying to improve this team, albeit in the margins. But Memorial Day is fast approaching. It's just a couple of weeks away, and the Yankees have some evaluating to do. Offense is, of course, down across the league. The de-juicified baseballs have shown us who can hit a high spin rate fastball and who can't. It's taken a few of those first row souvenirs and turned them into outs at the warning track. So in this episode of the podcast, I wanted to talk about who's struggling, who's adjusting and improving, and who could be out there to help the Yankees get better. Let me first say that over the past 20 years, it seems as if pitching has always been the Yankees' Waterloo. It seems like year after year, the Yankees are one pitcher short. When combined with a lack of hitting with runners in scoring position, that seems to be the formula for defeat year after year. But this year, I actually think the pitching is okay. Gerrit Cole is looking like a Cy Young contender early on. He enters Wednesday night's game with a 4-1 record in 7 starts, a minuscule whip of 0.716, and a microscopic ERA of 1.61. Outstanding. Corey Kluber has lived up to expectations and perhaps exceeded them. He's got a 3.06 ERA. He's looking almost like the Kluber of old rather than an old Corey Kluber. Domingo Germán, who entered the season as the number 3 starter, I should remind you, has an ERA of 4.02, pitching much better over his last several starts. Home runs continue to be an issue for him. He's allowed 7 in 31 innings. That's too many. But all things considered, I've been pleased with what we've gotten from Domingo Germán. Jordan Montgomery threw an absolute gem of a game on Tuesday night and has a promising ERA of 3.96 and a great whip of 1.034. And last but not least, Jameson Taillon is through 6 starts. And he's also served up more home runs than you'd like, 7 in 28 2/3 innings. But his ERA continues to fall with each start. He's down to 5.02, and I think he's only going to get better. Let's just keep him healthy. And so far, the Yankees pitching has been healthy. That's something that's been surprising to a lot of people. We all thought coming into this season that the pitching staff was going to fall apart. If you had told me that the Yankees were going to have 3 or 4 guys from the pitching staff on the injured list by this time of the year, I would have believed you. And while I would love to add Max Scherzer to the rotation, of course I would. The rotation, as it stands, has 4 guys 30 years old or younger and looks healthy. And with everyone making 6 starts so far at least, I don't think starting pitching is an immediate need, especially at the price that it's going to cost you to get Scherzer. But he would be a final piece to put you over the top kind of move, kind of like Verlander was a couple of years ago for the Astros. You pair Gerrit Cole and Max Scherzer together, you're winning the World Series, folks. You're winning the World Series. Depends on what you have to give up to get him. And the Nationals could be asking for the world. But I honestly don't think the Yankees need to go out and trade for somebody like a Germán Marquez or a Trevor Story. I think they're good as they are, especially in the pitching staff. The bullpen has been impressive. Chapman is looking like a Cy Young candidate himself, out of the bullpen. At 33 years old, he's having the best season of his career with a 0 ERA and an insane 19.3 strikeouts per nine. Think about that. He's averaging almost the single-game record for strikeouts for every 9 innings pitched, and his command has been great with just 5 walks in 14 innings. Jonathan Loaizaga, Johnny Lasagna, has stepped up, and he's established himself as the Yankees' best setup man, which is why they went to him, not Chad Green, who's also been great, by the way, in a tight game against the Rays after an off day when the entire bullpen should have been rested. It showed you who they think was the right man for the job with a 2-run lead late in the game. Chad Green has a 2.33 ERA, not too shabby. Luis Cessa, who's been a proverbial piñata at times in his career, is dominating with a 2.40 ERA. Lucas Litke, who hasn't pitched since 2015, he's at 3.26 and has been elite according to StatCast. Michael King has not been scored upon in 12 1/3 innings. Even Wandy Peralta, the newest member of the bullpen, looks terrific, throwing 96 with a sick changeup from the left side. So I'm confident in the pitching, especially with offense down the way it is. I mean, who's going to get better on offense if the ball continues to be a dud, as it has been? But I want to talk about the Yankees offense. There's a few things out there that concern me. Despite his double last night, Clint Frazier is batting .149. Even his on-base percentage is under .300 at .288. Baseball Savant also suggests that he could get one of the worst jumps in baseball in the outfield, if not the worst. To me, he's appeared solid out there. He's made a number of circus catches. He seems to be running well. He's got a good arm. So I don't completely trust the baseball analytics on defense yet. I'm sorry. You know, how can Gleyber Torres go from being one of the worst defensive infielders in the game to being one of the best? Or Mike Tauchman the other way around, one of the best to one of the worst? I just don't get the analytics yet. I'm sorry. But you can see that Clint Frazier is still not comfortable at the plate, despite the laser beam double he ripped last night at 116 plus miles an hour. That's evidence to me that somewhere deep inside of this guy, there's a monster waiting to break out. Fans know it. We've seen it. But at 26 years old, he needs to develop more consistency. At a time when he should be establishing himself as a star player who's entering his prime. He was ranked as the 9th best left fielder in all of baseball. He's still trying to quiet the whispers that he can't hack New York. I personally don't think the bright lights bother him as much as the two-seamer in on his hands does. Estevan Florial, a 23-year-old prospect out of Haiti who's been a top prospect for years and whose smooth outfield stride conjures up images, for me, at least, of Bernie Williams, continues to tear it up at AA Somerset. Last night, he led off the game with his league-leading 4th home run. He's a candidate to be moved up to AAA in the near future as he continues to storm his way towards the Bronx. And keep in mind, AAA uses the same baseballs as the Major League team, so if he continues to rake at AAA, then you think that maybe he's not that affected by the baseball. Is Frazier beginning to hear the whispers? Well, I don't think Florial will put Frazier out of a job just yet, but Brett Gardner could be another area where the Yankees can improve. Someone on one of my streams mentioned that the Yankees should give him a nice engraved gold watch and send him on his way. I think that may very well happen once the stands are packed, full of patrons again. Gardy, in the Yankees' opinion, deserves the proper send-off, unlike the Angels gave Albert Pujols. Poo-poo holes. Poo-poo holes. So if Gardy is still struggling in July, once the stadium is at full capacity, I think you'll see another mid-season retirement, a la Alex Rodriguez or Mark Teixeira, especially if Florial is continuing to play well. The Yankees could use that as an opportunity to break him in as a 4th outfielder, and we've seen how much Gardy plays. So it's not like as a 4th outfielder he's not going to get at-bats. He's going to get plenty of at-bats. The Yankees try and keep these guys in rotation, keep these guys healthy, give guys days off. We mentioned the Memorial Day evaluation. At a time when the Yankees are beginning to heat up, beginning to look like the American League favorite, it's clear to me that there's an opportunity to improve the outfield. Frazier is young enough, and he's shown enough that he can break out. But depending on how seriously the Yankees take this problem of being too right-handed, or how much they decide the de-juicified baseballs are affecting their power numbers, they may decide it's time to take advantage of that short right field porch and bring in a lefty to man left field. Whether it's Florial or someone else, we've seen Joey Gallo's name mentioned. I like Joey Gallo. He used to be a swing and miss guy, but he makes hard contact, and he's gotten better over the last couple years in terms of making contact. Aaron Hicks gets a lot of hate from Yankees fans, and I myself have been very critical of him. But with his contract, I don't think he's a candidate to be moved. He's currently batting 198, but over his last 10 games, I mentioned he's batting 370. So he's moving in the right direction. What stuns me, though, is that he's not walking very much. In spring training, he was walking almost by accident. Hopefully, as he begins to heat up and the Yankees lineup begins to get a little bit longer with Luke Voit coming back, teams are going to have to either pitch to him or they're going to have to work him more carefully, which should drive his walk numbers up. And lastly, Gary Sanchez hit his 4th home run of the year last night. He also looked good behind the plate. Though Montgomery isn't exactly a fireballer, and he's a bit easier to catch in my opinion, I was still impressed. He also had a couple of terrible at-bats. It seems to me that for every long home run that Gary Sanchez runs into, the Yankees have to endure a couple of weeks of strikeouts and soft pop-ups. And Higashioka has established himself as probably the best backup catcher in the league and has forced himself into more playing time with the Yankees, but I still think he's going to come back down to earth offensively with more playing time. He's a great defensive catcher, and at this point you have to look at him as the Yankees' primary catcher come playoff time. It'll be interesting to see who gets the duties behind the plate come playoff time, but it's worth noting that Higashioka is currently 3rd on the team with a 0.9 wins above replacement, tied with Aroldis Chapman and Giancarlo Stanton, and we both know how terrific they have been. Those are the areas that I'm mostly paying attention to right now. Left field, center field, and to a lesser degree, catcher. Combined, the Yankees catchers have hit for a ton of power. 8 home runs between them. Only team in the league with 2 catchers who have 4 home runs. Other than that, I feel like the Yankees are strong. Judge and Stanton are going back and forth for the team lead in home runs. DJ LeMahieu beginning to hit. He's 2nd on the team in WAR despite a dip in average, mostly due to his great defense. Gleyber Torres has also somehow become an elite defender, according to those somewhat mystifying StatCast data things. I don't even know what you call them, the metrics. Gio Urshela continues to be fantastic, as we mentioned. And the pitching is great. Great. The Yankees are in good shape. It'll be interesting to see how Brian Cashman tweaks this team going forward, and a lot of it's going to depend on who can stay healthy, who gets injured, things like that. I think Clint Frazier will hit eventually. But if the Yankees decide they want to add another left-handed bat, that is one area where I could see them doing it. I could also see them moving Gary Sanchez if some other team offers them enough, because they do have Robinson Chirinos down there in AAA, and he's caught Garrett Cole. He's an established Major League veteran. He could come in and split time with Kyle Higashioka just as effectively, and he's probably a better defender than Gary Sanchez, though he doesn't offer the same kind of offensive upside. So it's just going to come down to what the Yankees value more. But all in all, I feel a hell of a lot better now than I did when the Yankees were 5-10, as they creep back up towards first place in the American League, just 2 games behind the Boston Red Sox for first place in the American League East. My guess is that by Memorial Day, the Yankees will have passed the Boston Red Sox and taken over first place.